Woo.
Good
Hey,
evening,
everybody.
everybody. We made it.
All
GDL8. Woo!
right.
With everything, we did it. All right, start us off, Bruce. So you moderated tonight.
Okay.
This is
That
our
was,
post debate analysis. Oh, let me say, we wish Professor AJ Lowe, well. He's not feeling the best. He is commenting in the backgrounds, but he's not feeling the best. That's why you don't see him on screen tonight.
is it Dorona?
Don't. Oh, he gonna be mad at you. I didn't say that, AJ. Bruce did.
Torona.
All right. All seriousness. Okay, so long anticipated debate. We've been waiting for that one for some time. Really intriguing, controversial topic: spankings and black children. I thought both debaters showed up and they seemed to have their information prepared. But as you can see, Esther kind of had to take some time to warm up. Miss Spence was kind of consistent in a very like unengaging, just straight delivering her facts kind of way. Uh, she just wanted to get through it, get her facts out, and she wasn't really trying to fight. Esther didn't really attack much either, but she kind of was more engaging with the audience and just a much better delivery. So, right, I'll have to review it again, but I'm leaning towards a win for Anglade, even though I thought in Esther's, oh, I'm sorry, Anglade, but I thought that I'm sorry, Miss Spence's closing statement was very good, and I just wish she would have used more of that information throughout the debate, particularly in the lightning round.
Yeah. I have to say, Bruce, AJ put up funny guy since she said since she talked about him. But yeah, I feel you on your points, Bruce. I felt like Linda had information, but she only shared it selectively, like in her opening and closing, and maybe a little bit during the lightning round at some points. But I felt she would have given a stronger performance if she would have used the information that she had more consistently throughout the debate, in particular in the lightning round, because to me, Linda gave up a lot of time to Esther during the lightning round, and it was just really all I almost really remember from the lightning round was Esther talking. Linda
Yeah.
talked a little bit, but Linda didn't really engage with Esther in that exchange, or even give a lot of questions for her.
I think this debate was one of the more high level debates that we had, where both parties came with a lot of actual studies and information, not just their own kind of viewpoints, which I definitely respect, and I think that other debaters who are looking at this should follow suit. Um, what I would have said, because they both had their own sources for information, I would have liked to have them to talk a little bit more about the meta analyses that they came across. I know they kind of touched upon it a little bit, but meta analyses do a very good job. It's the kind of the gold standard. They take a collection of studies and do some statistical analyses on them, and to answer their question, which would be, hey, is spanking, deleterious to the child, or is it appropriate, or does it have any negative outcomes, things of that nature. And so there were some problems that I had with, I'm not objective in this. I do not believe children should be spanked or hit. So I will put that out there right now. As a psychologist, the evidence is not on the side of people who advocate for even light hitting, to my knowledge. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that hitting a child in the black culture is a lineage of slavery, which Linda kind of alluded to, and it's an offset of what Dr. Joyce DeGruy calls, post-traumatic slavery syndrome. It's a part of that, and also it's a part of the identification with the aggressor, which is what they were alluding to in the conversation. Whereas your captor, your oppressor, is beating the dog crap out of you, and so you take some of the things that they're doing, and you apply it to the next generation, and you identify with what they did to you, so now you do to others, and
Yeah.
so that it becomes very problematic.
Interesting.
I want to share AJ's. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Agree. I want to share AJ's comments. He just said he said both debaters seemed ill prepared, but Linda getting the opening by a slim margin based on default. Esther gets the lightning round, and it's a tie on the closing argument. He said he would have to go back and watch the Q&A again, but he think it's a draw. The debate is a draw.
I could see how he comes to that, because the lightning round was so Linda allowed Esther to dominate it, and I thought this was the important part. A lot of the information she used in her closing statement would have been better used and then reaffirmed in the closing statement. She put in the lightning round, particularly the study she had by I want to say not Landry, but she used the study where they did the meta-analysis, and they showed that all the spankings, abuse were all grouped together, and there were never any studies where they isolated or tried to just focus on spanking. So to me, that threw out a lot of Esther's research that she brought, but Linda didn't drive in on that. And I thought that without her making that point,
she didn't, but I have seen meta-analyses, specific, well, not meta-analyses, but specific studies focused on Black children and being hit, which normally, though, those are hard to come by. And they show pretty conclusively that, hey, hitting is not, as a form of corrective behavior, is not as good as other forms of discipline. And so, it becomes an issue.
I'll look at those specifically, because the ones that I saw, particularly that review all the meta-analysis, and then you have the studies that review what was wrong, and what they started to pick at was the methodologies are flawed. And if you have a flawed methodology, you get the results you want to get.
No, and I would agree. I mean, a lot of these methodologies, they use samples of white children and white cultures along with other cultures of children, and that could be very problematic on a number of levels. That's why I wanted to focus on just studies that kind of really focus on Black children, because there's some studies that go, hey, most Black adults look fondly upon the kind of abuse that they have been given by their parents, because they know that, hey, this was because they loved me. And that's how they kind of phrase it, qualitative and quantitative studies. But that doesn't negate what the negative outcomes may be from that kind of corporal punishment.
The problem becomes, how do you isolate the negative outcomes? And I don't think either of our debaters, I like what Esther said. She said that we could look at anything, but she brought up, for example, sexual abuse, but you can isolate sexual abuse, but you can't isolate, for example, spanking from a person who was beat with an iron rod, throw them in the same study, and then say, look at these results. Those are two different things. So go ahead.
You see, AJ said we're not, Dr. Flo, we're not here to debate the topic, but to critique the debate.
Is Professor AJ sick or not? What is it? What is it? Listen. Come on.
No, go ahead.
I will say, I did think it was cool when Esther said, I'm just like, I think she was trying to get maybe some of her thoughts together, and she settled herself and said, I'm just going to talk directly to the audience. Like, I think just even as a tactic, because sometimes, as Mutor, as you mentioned, both of these debaters, you could tell that they had factual information that they had, researched and brought to the table. However, sometimes you could have so much information, and if you're not organized with it, or like, oh gosh, when am I going to use what or when? It could be like, here we go. Now I need to pull all this together in this structured format. But I do like that. I felt when she felt herself a bit jolted, maybe, or not together, she just said, okay, I'm just going to talk directly to the audience, and that settled her in to make some of her points.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, the reason why I think, outside of my own bias, I realize I'm biased, but I think Esther won solely because it looked like throughout the entire debate, Linda was walking back when the uses of corporal punishment would be actually effective. But by the end, she limited its usage between 2 and 6, which I find very problematic. Whereas corporal punishment being used between 2 and 6 because certain cognitive, rational things aren't there yet, developed in children. So hitting them just becomes like they don't know what's going on at certain ages like that. It's between 2 and 6. So So that becomes a more of an issue, hitting them at that age. Whereas at least a 12 or 13-year-old could cognitively process this and go, well, they're hitting me because I did X. So that was a problem.
Yeah. I got a funny comment. Mutor, somebody said, Mutor, who is this man? Because Mutor has shaved since our last. Since our last time, a little bit funny. And AJ's getting on YouTube. He said he hasn't lost his hearing or sight yet. Asking to be sick. But
I hope you don't ever lose your hearing or sight.
Right. But
yeah, so without trying to kind of relitigate their debate, I'm still thinking that Esther came across more clear and she performed better. If they were equal in the information they provided, her performance was better, even considering she kind of stumbled through the opening round. And I think she was flustered. She was trying to get everything together. And then as she got into it, once she got in her flow, Esther was on point for the remainder of the debate. But her performance was pretty great in the sense that she just effortlessly got her information out.
Yeah, I wanted to hear them engage more. That was the toughest part for me. During the lightning round, even if that was Linda's strategy, for whatever reasons, okay, you can decide to handle that lightning round however you choose. However, when people are watching, if you're not engaging, that sends a louder signal than even if that is your strategy. It's like if you're not questioning your opponent or coming back and forth and actually being heard in that conversation, then by default it just looks like that other person is dominating you and they're just getting most of the airtime.
Yeah, I would agree. And like, okay, and back to like the actual debate itself. So I don't want to do an appeal to nature or the naturalistic fallacy, but you don't really see the shaping of behavior in the animal world or even any animals that are close to us, like bonobos or chimpanzees, physically hit their children in order to teach them what not to do or what not to do. It doesn't work like that in the natural world. And so I know that humans, because of our cognitive processes, are largely leaps and bounds ahead of other species, even ones that share about 99% of our genetic information, like bonobos. But you don't see them going, okay, you did X, you went close to this alligator, so I'm going to hit you to make sure that you don't do that anymore.
What about in regards to when the teenagers challenge the adult males? They would come to violence then at those times.
But that's something different. That's more of an instinctual drive to like, hey, like I am the head. Yeah. Not I'm trying to correct some kind. I'm not trying to correct some kind of behavior. But then that's problematic in itself, what you're saying, because isolated in that, you can make the argument that, hey, hitting is okay because we want you to follow authority. Well, who's the authority right now? It's white supremacy and white people.
No, the parent is the authority.
The larger authority over black people, and this is said in the actual argument, is white supremacy, white people.
Somebody asked that question. Yeah, somebody asked a question about if we were following white supremacy.
I wrote that. Yes, we are. I wrote that question.
That's if no one else except for white people ever spanked their children. And I don't know that to be the case. I think that you could look across the continent of Africa pre-colonial and you'll find some societies that did not. They did have in some of the West African societies, they used they would do hand slaps and they would do discipline, and they were strongly disciplined around respect for elders and to enforce social norms. So I don't know. I don't think that people abuse their children. They didn't tolerate that. In fact, you could lose your custody, as you still can today. So I think it comes down to that line between the two.
Some people would say, I know Yolanda. I hope I'm quoting you right. Yolanda Williams, who's she's a part of our debate league, and she also has a Parenting Decolonized podcast. And she says that we say, well, there's a difference between if I just spank you and abuse you, but if I hit you, that is abuse, especially being an adult.
So then
Professor Lowe says,
my problem with that is it not mystifies it. It takes abuse and makes it something that's so extensive to where now everything becomes abuse. So how can you say okay, how do we distinguish when someone takes a bat to a child versus someone popping their child on the hand or
Those
are not
the same. Those are not. See, the problem with this is this: is that the problem with this is that, okay, early on in psychology, during the behaviorist era, we learned that positive reinforcement works better than punishment. Specifically, what this is, hitting a child, which is called positive punishment. There's 100 years worth of evidence that shows, hey, there are more effective ways to alter and change behavior for a longer period of time than actually hitting a child.
That's not 100%.
So it's like,
because there is research that conflicts with that says that when they show that you can get a lot of those same negative associated behaviors by using non-spanking as your method. Also, there's ones that show that to get immediate results out of your child, spanking is either equal to or better than all the other identified methods.
And so here's the problem. You spank, you hit your child in order, the idea is in order to change the behavior. So if you hit your child immediately because you want them to stop, yeah, you can get them to stop. But if they do it tomorrow, then you have to repeat the process. We're talking about utilizing tools that will help you so you don't have to do that any longer. And that's where corporal punishment becomes a less than as far as other tools in the toolbox.
I want to bring in AJ. Professor AJ said he would like to see Esther take advantage of the fact that her opponent agreed with her towards the end.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to speak for Linda, but I think she was making a mistake just based off what I heard her say in the beginning, where she was using the term synonymously at the end, spanking and abuse. Early on, she tried to differentiate between the two. So when she was speaking of abuse later in the debate, she was saying like, yeah, white supremacy is responsible for the abuse, and she was saying spanking. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I thought, because I didn't think she would just go against her own argument. So
yeah, she did. It's interesting because I think with Linda's, well, she said it to us too, Bruce. I think with her background, she could have argued either side. And so that probably came through in the debate and some of the comments that she was making, because she could have argued on the affirmative as well. And so perhaps subconsciously or whatever, some of that kind of came through for her. I don't know.
Yeah, but all in all, I thought it was a good debate. I think it's one we can all watch and learn from. And I think anyone who watches this one will be able to see what they want to do in their own debate going forward.
Yeah.
So what do we got on the docket? What's next up in the Great Debate League?
GDL9, aren't we talking about, which is next Thursday, the 23rd, right? Hold on, y'all, am I good? The 23rd, and we're talking about trans women and women's sports. Trey Scott and Marquise Rosier will be debating that, and they're going to be on next Thursday, August 23rd, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's going to be good.
So y'all look out for that.
Absolutely.
And please make sure you vote in the poll. The poll is up. It's open to group members to vote. The poll will be up for 24 hours, so we'll take it down tomorrow afternoon. And but you can be sure to vote for the greater debater, not necessarily who you agree with.
There we go.
All right. Well, peace, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in with us and staying with us. We've done 8 debates now. We'll get into 9 next week. We appreciate y'all for rocking with us.
All right, everybody.
All right. Peace.
Peace, y'all.